My intros were playing a little funny there. I don't know what that's about. But anyway, what's up, everybody? Sorry if you've been waiting around or whatever, running a few minutes late today. That's my fault. I decided to wait to the last minute to eat something before we did this. But here we are. And I've got Cynthia McDonald with me. And Cynthia, I'll just kind of let you introduce yourself, tell us what you're about and where you're at and all that stuff. I've got stuff that'll be rolling through the chat for you as far as links and stuff. So,
Yeah. Thank you. First off, Joe, I just wanted to thank you so much for inviting me and having me on. I really appreciate the invite and being here with you today. Um, as Joe said, my name is Cynthia. I host a little YouTube channel called The Roots Matter. It's a show about news and politics, and that also discusses the intersectionality of religion and government and how that even shows up in different stories in our lives. Um, from an atheist perspective, a secular humanist point of view that happens to be hosted by Black women, such as I. I'm also the lead affiliate for the Black Nonbelievers in Chicago. That's where I am right now. So I'm the lead organizer for Black Nonbelievers Chi-Town. That's what our official group is called. Um, I also speak, and I have been speaking in different conventions and also addressing small groups, larger groups. And I mostly talk about social and economic justice and also the historicity of Black folks in religion. Um, and I've been doing that since 2021. I made my speaking debut at the Women of Color Beyond Belief conference that was hosted by Black Nonbelievers here in Chicago. And I was invited by Mandisa Thomas. Shout out to Mandisa. Shout out to all Black Nonbelievers and the members. Shout out to Kelly King, that's over to Detroit. Shout out to Tina Marshall, that's over Charlotte. So, all those ladies are absolutely awesome. And also I am part of the Godless Gospel Project that is with the Freedom from Religion Foundation. We did do a more scaled down version of it this year at the convention in South Carolina. That was a lot of fun. I sang with Mandisa and Candace Coram, and Dan Barker played on the piano. We also performed at the NanoCon this year, and we performed at the Revival of Reason in Atlanta earlier in March. And we even did a little bit of something at the Secular Coalition of America when we got together in Washington, D.C. to lobby for different inferences that, show up that violate the establishment calls between church and state. So, yeah, and I'm also on the board for Jason Friedman's new nonprofit that's coming out very soon, and we're also going to be doing some projects together musically as well. So I'm looking forward to all that. So got a lot of irons in the fire. I'm a mom. I got a little 4-year-old. He's in the living room right now watching a documentary about Mickey Mouse because reasons. And and yeah, and so that's who I be.
yeah. So, first of all, great to finally get it to sit down and what happened here? Oh, we lost you for a second and came back. Um, Great to finally get to sit down and talk with you. I, of course, have seen you around a number of those things and doing lots of different projects and on various channels. And I think the first place that I've seen you was um, a Black Nonbelievers fundraiser that Mandisa was putting on.
Hmm.
But um, and as for those links, it takes about 5 minutes for my bot to join the chat, so it'll be there, I promise. But the and all that, there'll be links for uh, the Roots Matter channel and Black Nonbelievers scrolling through chat there. Um, the excuse me, the so how to put this, we you and I actually, turns out, we hit a lot of the same topics a lot. I've got like a political show that I do over here where we talk about current political topics and stuff. And uh, I'm very much like community centered in the way that I approach, making content and stuff. And so, are you still there?
Yes.
Okay. So we
Well,
lost you.
maybe
You may have to reload uh, to
you
get
know
it to
what?
pop back up. There.
Give me one moment.
Yeah, you're
Let
fine.
me see if I can hard line in. That's what I should have did before the beginning of the stream, but that would have been too much like right. Just give me one
Yeah,
moment while I do that.
yeah. But while she's doing that, I will give a few little announcements and stuff here. So we've got lots of cool stuff coming up in the future. I've got a couple different authors I'm going to have on about mythicism in the month of December. And we've got, I'll be doing a show over with Kelly King over on her channel on the 12th, I think. And there's a few other things going on. I'm actually glad to get back to a show here, where I get to sit down and talk to some fellow atheists. I've been doing a lot of the debates and the arguing with creationists and such, which is what it is, I guess. It's a thing. They, it, you know, it's one of those weird things because it's like, yeah, it's a lot of silly stuff in there, especially with like the Kent Hovind type creationists. But at the same time, I have fun doing it, so it's just kind of a fun thing for me. What's up, Kelly? I see you.
Hey,
Um,
girl.
the but you haven't you done some stuff with RFR too? Um,
Yes, I have. I've done like a couple of speaking engagements with the recovering from religion from on their Monday night broadcast on Zoom. So and also I have done some, interviews on Skeptic Haven where I got a chance to sit down with Dr. Daryl Ray. And it's kind of funny. I think that one of the first interviews that I did with him, I asked him because, like he's really big in talking about like, sex and and secularism, and how they mesh. And I said to him, I said, "Hey, Dr. Ray, I have a question to ask you." He's like, "What's that, Cynthia?" I said, "Every time I think of sex, I get tired. Why?" And he's like, I don't know why you get tired when you think about sex, but it could be a bunch of different things that come up. Oh, like I told him, I said, I'm gonna ask you that question and I need you to give me like a really good, conversation, a really good like talking point coming back. But we actually did have like a really good conversation when I interviewed him and we were talking about, sex and sexuality and how it shows up and and also some of the stigmas that came with it, especially with folk who happen to be in more religious settings, especially in Christianity, and even how like some of us who happen to traverse and deconstruct still struggle with it, even though we left religion. So that was a good conversation, and it's on
yeah,
Skeptic Raven's channel right now. So if you guys want to check it out.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Kelly's talking about we did an RFRX together back in
Mm.
August. Me and her and Jess. Did they ever air that, Kelly? Because nobody told me if they did, and I didn't see it. But that doesn't mean anything.
They normally do.
Yeah,
They normally do. They usually it's usually like about like after the fact, but I'm pretty sure it's on their channel too.
yeah. I think that they were going to do some editing and stuff to it,
Mhm.
and put it out later. So I did. It didn't matter to me either way. I had a good time talking with those people and Dr. Daryl Ray. I did a little bit with RFR too, and Dr. Daryl Ray. He immediately like was like, "Oh, you're the Kentucky atheist, are you?" And talked a lot about his experiences in Kentucky and
Mm.
and all that. And it's yeah, like it was kind of a joke when I made the channel, like the Kentucky Atheist. It was like I'm the only one, or there's like that kind of deal, and so, uh, but it was really interesting since I've done this, just the number of other atheists in Kentucky I've met, and
Hmm.
of course, we did the Ark Encounter protest thing,
Yeah.
and all that, and it's just you don't really know until you get out there working in the community, the people you're going to meet, and it's not always the people that you expect that are out there really doing the work on the ground.
Hmm.
But uh, either way, so you said you cover a lot of political stuff. That's got to be fun. Tuesday.
Yeah, yeah. Oh God. Well, I will tell you that I am not without content to produce, especially nowadays, right? I kind of got, because like at first I really wasn't into politics much. I kind of got more into politics, I would say, like between like 2000, like the end of 2018, early 2019, when I saw this online group called American Descendants of Slavery start to grow. And they were talking about reparations, and they were touting the work of a Duke professor named Dr. William Darity Jr. And one of the people who was kind of helping grow that movement was a pastor in Kentucky, by the way. Um, and I cannot think of that man's name right now. I'm looking at his face, but I can't think of his name. And he worked a lot with an HBCU that happened to be in the capital, I think, called Simmons College. And they had their first convention for American Descendants of Slavery at Simmons College, and he was the MC. And it was funny because at the time, my partner and I were kind of doing the activism work together, and that's when I started getting more into politics and doing more reading and research and things of that nature, and just like really looking at the history of Black Americans like in the United States, and like how we even came to this particular point, and how like politics had like a big um, a big hand in the development of a certain people, of everybody basically in the United States. And and it was funny because like the pastor talked to my partner and said, yeah, that I date Cynthia. He said, who, Cynthia the atheist? And he's he starts to crack up. He's like, "Yes, Cynthia the atheist," but he said, "I'm an atheist too." And he said, "No," but he said, like, "No, because like I used to do another show called The 13% with my old partner back in the day, and we did do like a lot of the intersections of religion, politics, and also social collective uplift and things of that nature as well." And he said, "No, I really dig you guys' content. I think that you're great." And then he said, "But I find actually engaging atheists a bit more refreshing because like you guys are good without God. Like you literally have a ethical and moral center without having to attribute it to a belief in a in a deity, right?" And and I had another friend, and I think this is kind of what changed my mind because like I had a girlfriend that works in Washington D.C. now, and she used to watch for fun C-SPAN. Like when I would go like listen, go visit her and stuff like that, and like C-SPAN would be on or baseball. That either or that was her life, right? And at first I was just like, oh my God, this stuff is so boring. But she was really trying to encourage me to really like listen more because these debates that a lot of these lawmakers are having affect us directly, right? And so, and as time went on and I really started to understand, like learn and understand how politics really is so integrated in like our lives, it made sense to be and I don't call myself an expert by no means. I'm not an expert, nothing. Like, it's kind of like how me and my mom say, I'm a jack of trades, but a master of none, right?
Yeah.
But I call my like I think of myself as a student, right? Because like there is always something to learn, always something to to garner, and and if you are living anytime, you will never know everything, right? So I remember like when I was little, I used to hear, and I heard this from PBS a lot. Like if you learn something, that there's like another wrinkle that becomes that goes into your brain. And so I said, okay, so my life's journey and my life's goal is to get as many wrinkles as possible in my brain. And so that means that I had to dedicate myself to being a student of, of different, topics and subject matters, and especially when it comes to history and politics, and even like looking at how religion of itself is so political, and how it even shows up in different places, even though like specifically in the United States it's not supposed to, but it does, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, so like I would remember, and I would go back into like some of my early civic lessons that I had when I was in middle school, and how you had to learn the Constitution, and you had to learn about the three branches of government, and learn about like how voting works, and how a bill becomes law, and even like how there have been times, not a lot, but there have been times where how a bill is signed into law by the executive branch, which would be the head of the executive branch, of course, is the president, right?
Right.
And how Congress still has the power to overturn a veto from the president.
Yeah.
So, veto is basically saying that the president rejects a law, rejects a bill that the Congress has voted on to say that they would like passed. And 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 I think of like specifically the 14th Amendment that gave us birthright citizenship, that gave African Americans the ability to negotiate contracts, actually put into law the first things that we know concerning civil rights. The Civil Rights Act of 1866 is embedded in the 14th Amendment. And like how the 14th Amendment like really was a game changer for minorities like that was in the United States at that particular time and still is today, and how the president at the time did not want that ratified, Andrew Johnson.
Yeah.
And Congress overturned his veto and made it law.
Yeah.
And so like things like that just like lets me know how important it really is to get into politics, and to the point where you need to learn about it, and you need to really be aware of all the different stage plays, the stage plays of politics that are happening right now in the halls of Congress, in the halls of the Senate, in I mean even in the executive branch, and the cabinets that have been set up, and even like also in the halls of the Supreme Court, because they can say, oh no, this is constitution, this isn't constitutional, even when it's not constitutional,
Yeah.
and I think it's incumbent about all of us who happen to be, I don't care if like if you're undocumented, if you're documented, if you're a resident, or if you're a citizen. If you live here, you need to know the politics of this place,
Yeah.
because everything affects you. Whatever
Well,
they're doing up there, it affects you.
so one of the things, and for those of you out there that are common around here, that hang out a lot here, you've heard me talk about this, but um, one of the things I always go back to whenever I'm talking about political stuff is that Benjamin Franklin said, what we have here is a republic if we can keep it.
Yeah,
And that doesn't just mean that it's your responsibility to vote or anything like that. It means that it's your job, and if you want to keep this and keep freedom and liberty, that you you will be informed and do your part in maintaining that, because it it works for all of us, but we have to maintain that. And
yeah,
that's so whenever I get asked a lot about like why do you do political stuff and this and that, that's one of the things that I always go back to is like, well, it's kind of it's not just it's not just like a civic duty to vote, but your responsibility to be informed about what your government's doing and how it works and how it functions. And you can't really, I mean, I guess you can do whatever you want. You can be mad about things when they don't work out, but if it's just a lack of understanding and buried in ignorance, then there's no one to blame but yourself, really.
Yeah.
The And so uh, I think as atheists, even Cynthia the atheist, we we find ourselves at this intersection to where these two paths have crossed and are
Mhm.
directly influencing each other.
Yeah.
And so you're seeing a lot of and not just atheists. I mean, you're seeing people from all different kinds of activist groups who are having to get more involved in politics because you're right, it's directly affecting all of us. So yeah, and I think that's an excellent point. And the such as knowing what the 14th Amendment is and those things, like, yeah, when you're a kid in school and stuff, and that history stuff's boring, and you just like, why do I even need to know this and all that, and it becomes quite the story because unfortunately, what we have today is this, for lack of a better term, this whitewashing of our history,
Yeah.
and this like, f- for example,
Mhm.
slavery, a terrible part of our history, a terrible thing that happened. But
Mhm.
the fact that, now, to what degree you think we have overcame it, of course, but the the it's not, it's just because we have those negative things in our past. It's that we survived as a country through that, and that we move forward, and how we work together to move forward, um,
Mhm.
carrying on past that. That is what makes it so important to keep in our history. And also, you don't want to repeat the most awful things within our history, whether it be in the United States or elsewhere, which we
Right.
see some of that too. But
Yeah.
I think that having that knowledge about how it is that we work through these things as a country, and things aren't perfect, but we have definitely moved more towards more freedom for people, more rights for people,
Mhm.
and until recently anyway. There's been kind of some problems here recently, but
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. I think that that's one of the things that is so important to really understand as well, that, you know, I don't have an issue with acknowledging progress where progress is. But as you even mentioned previously, when Benjamin Franklin said, like, if we, this is a republic if we can keep it. The the statutes that hold us up as a democratic, republic is so porous, because we have to have buy-in from all the branches of government to keep it going. And if you have government officials who are in the majority that are willing to basically ignore the statutes that we have been that have been placed in, to keep it from becoming an oligarchy, becoming a fascist state, becoming an authoritarian government, then all of those particular ideals that the framers had in mind goes completely out the window. And who's going to end up suffering? It's going to be you. It's going to be me. It's going to be people who happen to be just the regular folk that's, like, walking around trying to just, like, live, right?
yeah,
And when you even look at the reasons why those things are, like, ignored, it's usually so that we can keep the top at the top and the bottom at the bottom.
Yeah.
And that has been the American way before that there was a United States. I
Yeah.
mean, like,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, like, even if, like, we're taking slavery in of itself, slavery was an institution that was put on roller skates in the 1680s just so that the elite class that happened to be land owning English Christian men could stay in power because they were also running the government, especially in the Virginia House of Burgesses at the time, and to keep separate people who happen to be poor or even Europeans that have came over through indentured servitude, who aligned with Africans who actually came over to work those particular tobacco farms, indigo farms, etc. And they've been using the same shtick
Yeah.
for centuries. Even before, like I said, before we even had like a working constitution. I asked, like, when I said, can you just imagine the first time that you ever heard the word white and black to actually describe race wasn't until the 1680s, right? And that was after Nathaniel Bacon's rebellion, who was an English indentured servant who was jilted out of getting his um, land when he was done working his contract.
Yeah.
And he was able to convince other people who happened to be, even including African slaves and some African indentured servants who were here at that time, to basically rise up against the establishment. And the establishment, after that rebellion was over, was like, we got to come up with something because we can't allow this type of thing to happen again. And that's the reason why they came up with these laws to say, okay, I know that what we considered a person that was, what's the word that I'm looking for? Sophisticated, um, genteel, was the Christian English Christian English man who owned property. Now they're just white. And they extended certain privileges to any person who was considered white. And those who are considered black, they were having those particular privileges taken away
Yeah.
or just not existing. And all of that was to create a forced labor and to be able to justify slavery, to justify the going into the African continent and taking and stealing people off of the continent. I know that some people say, "Oh no, they were sold." Yes, they were sold, but they were stolen from the land that they were actually living on. Whether and you can and we can go through a whole rabbit hole of people who are responsible, but at the end of the day, it happened.
Yeah.
And it was taken advantage of by America so that they could establish the world's richest nation. And I get so triggered when I hear different political pundits on the right that try to downplay slavery and say that, oh no, it wasn't slavery that made us an economic superpower. It was the Industrial Revolution. And I'm like, okay, if I grant you that, where did the industrialists get the capital
Yeah.
to do the revolution, the industrial revolution in the first
It's
place?
the OG wealth inequality. It's the yeah, the that I find a lot whenever I got into this political spectrum of things that wealth inequality just keeps popping its head up, like that,
Hmm.
and not being the only reason for a lot of our darkest things, whether it be slavery or other unrest, the Civil War, of course, and other wars that have taken place. You know, they they have all these ties to slavery, but there's also like people with different motives in there, and the
Yeah.
elite very much wanted it to be their country, ran by them, controlled by them, and why pay for labor, like
Yeah.
the and that's it's interesting because we had this conversation during the art protest thing, talking about like, well, you know, racism all across the world in all its forms is a terrible, horrible thing. Here in the United States, is it driven more by hate, or is it actually driven from the top by wealth inequality
Hmm.
that then influences that hate? And
Yeah.
I don't think there's any one lane you can really tie it to.
Yeah. I
But
mean,
definitely that's a huge
it's
part of it.
yeah. I know. Well, a huge part of it, of like any of this, is capitalism.
Yeah,
Like, if you just keep it a buck, like when you are thinking of it, just like let's just take it from the point of view of business. And and then this is like from the research that I have done, just looking into some of these particular topics, that if you are a business owner, the majority of the income that you get goes to your labor force.
yeah,
Like between like 70 to 75% roughly. So like if you're paying out all that money just to keep people employed, what what happens when you're able to use an institution to take that away?
yeah,
Your bottom line exponentially increases 75%, because that's not something that you have to necessarily concern yourself with. Now, I mean, there's going to be some labor costs versus like housing your labor force, your forced labor, feeding your forced labor. If they need, health care, like, medical treatment and stuff like that, then you have to do that as well. But that's still going to be at the lower spectrum, because the majority of the money that they're making, you're not going to be able to have, take that out of wages, because there are no wages for them to earn. Matter of fact, even during slavery, because they were property, you had slave owners that were able to even lease their slaves out to do work for other people who may not necessarily have been able to purchase slaves and do all that other stuff, the other logistics that happens with them. But I can go ahead and lease them out to you so that they can do certain tasks for you, and you pay me for their labor, but I'm not going to pay them.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I mean, like,
Wow.
so like yeah, so like you have, and see, and here's the thing, because like what makes this so sinister is that capitalism is the whole wherewithal to even create a forced labor institution. But the consequence of creating this forced labor institution are the whole inferences of of like injecting certain things like hate, because like it's like what the Wizard of Oz said in Wicked. Oz was in discord. It was in chaos. I came and made it right. And the way that I did it was to create an enemy.
Yep.
And that's what capitalism does. What's the talking point now? Oh, it's the illegal immigrants that are taking your jobs. It's and they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats, Joe.
Yeah.
They're stealing your jobs, they're stealing your SNAP benefits, even though that if you are an illegal, if you're here illegally, you can't get social safety net
Right.
programs. Screw that whole fact. Facts in this point thing doesn't even matter. But of course, at that particular time, the enemy was slaves, who, if they actually had any type of a semblance of freedom, or giving them a little bit more privilege than they should get, then we got to slap them back into line, right?
Yeah.
And now it's and now, like, I really remember like looking at 47 at the time on the stage of the National Association of Black Journalists in
Oh
Chicago,
wow. Yeah.
where he said that illegal immigrants are taking the black jobs. And then so the head interviewer, who happened to be a journalist for ABC, says, "What are black jobs?"
Yeah.
Which I think is a pretty good I think it's a pretty good question to
She
ask if
was
this is what
quick
you're
on it,
bringing up.
wasn't she?
Yeah, she said, "What is a black job?" And he said, "Well,
Yeah.
any job that a black people have." I'm like, uh huh. But
Yeah.
no, this is what you really meant to say. The meaning, the minuscule jobs, the hard labor jobs, the jobs that you were originally taken from your homeland to do, are the jobs that you still should be doing. You know, you want to make sure that African Americans that are here were here because they were supposed to do a task that no one else wanted to do. They're the ones who's picking the cotton. They're the ones who's processing the indigo. They're the ones who are picking the Tabasco. I mean, not Tabasco, tobacco.
Yeah.
Tabasco sauce actually on greens is absolutely lovely. That's not here nor there. So
Yeah.
this is what you have them doing, right? So now that and it's kind of interesting, because my mom is from Jamaica, but my father's from the South, right? And in Jamaica specifically, when the UK abolished slavery back in 1833, the slaves just left the plantations. They weren't even trying to see a sugar plantation to be touch it, nothing, right? So what ended up happening is that they had a campaign to have other people from their commonwealths to come to the island and other islands that they happen to be over, they lorded over, to work those sugarcane plantations. And that's why you have, like, in Trinidad and and Barbados and in a lot of the different Caribbean, a a pretty significant population of East Indians and Chinese people,
Yeah.
because those are the groups that came over the most to work those fields. The Chinese ended up kind of moving over into, being merchants, owning stores, things of that nature. Matter of fact, my grandmother was a bookkeeper for a Chinese bakery when she was up and coming, and she spent a lot of time with them, of course, because she worked with them. And then also too, you had more like East Indian people actually go into business as well as time went on. But yeah, the slaves was like, yeah, we're not, no, we're free, we're not touching none of that, right? So but in America, that's not necessarily what happened. After the Civil War was fought, you had um different, very sinister, very malicious tactics to get Black people back into working into the fields.
Yeah.
Some of them, a lot of them couldn't read, and you had the state create vagrancy laws. So, like, if you don't have a job, you get arrested. And then once you get arrested and you're in prison, they can lease you out to work the fields, to work in infrastructure and things of that nature. That's where you get the term convict leasing from.
Yeah.
You also had former overseers kidnapping Black folk
Yeah.
in the South and making them sign contracts to work the fields for life. Um, Even during Jim Crow, like that's 100 years, like before Jim Crow was like made illegal back in 1964, through the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and then the Voter Rights Act of 1965, that you had sharecropping, where they got paid very little or not at all. Matter of fact, like, if you guys get ever chance to watch the movie Sinners, they talked a little bit about this there, because in Sinners, there's a scene where Smoke, one of because like Michael B. Jordan actually played twins. They're Smoke and Stack. So Smoke is getting upset because he's seeing that the people who are actually attending their juke joint paying with their money that they're getting from the fields, but it's not real money. It's like wooden. It's literally wooden nickels,
Yeah.
and those are like the wooden nickels that are good for purchasing goods and services and things of that nature for the immediate area that they live in, but it's not real money. So this is just another way in order for them to continuously keep a certain people in poverty, because now you're basically leaning on me to create a living arrangement for you. You can't go outside of this at all because
Yeah.
that's all you're getting. And so
The
like,
mining companies did it that way here in the area
yeah.
I live in later
Hmm.
on. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And I mean, like, so like, I mean, like, you do just think about all of these different things, especially like when you're talking about the wealth gap, because like people are like, well, why is there such a huge wealth gap? Well, these are the reasons why.
Yeah.
You release, think about it, you release 4 million people who've been slaves all their lives and say, okay, you're free. And they're like, okay, but you don't give them money, you don't give them housing, you don't give them an economic floor, and you just tell them motherfuckers to figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's what basically was done. I mean, even though like you had like the Freedmen's Bureau that was supposed to handle like a lot of that, but that only lasted for like what, 7 years, and then it was taken away because the South didn't want to fund it anymore and said, okay, well, you all had time enough to get yourself on your feet. I'm like, but there was like almost 250 years of slavery on this soil. But I mean, like, so and so they had no chance to earn anything, and you're gonna tell them after 7 years that they're supposed to be equal? Come on now. As Boozy said, come on, man. Come on, man. It don't, the math ain't mathing.
Yeah.
And then like you had like some slaves that were able to, try to save and scrimp something together, right? From like different things that they did over the years. They put their money in the Freedmen's Bank. What happens to the Freedmen's Bank? 3 years, defunct. Reason being is because the guy who was running it, a white man, decided to use the assets in that bank to fund junk loans and also um, very high risk bonds and things of that nature that basically took the people's money because of course it's not FDIC insured. So if they're doing all these different things and if they're taking the money that people are coming into, that they're putting into the bank in order to fund whatever type of crazy venture that they want to get, those people are asked out. And when Frederick Douglass tried to take over the bank, he put about $15,000 of his own money into the bank, but it just was not enough. And he even said, called the Freedmen's Bank, that was, the white people's milk and black people's cow.
Yeah.
You know, so like, yeah, you get the product, but we gotta keep that Mew alive in order for us to even try to get anything out of it, and we don't. And I mean like that, and according to like today's figures, that's like billions of dollars like completely lost that no one has access to anymore. And this is the reason why we have a 90% get wealth gap between black and white in the United States.
Yeah.
And then you had like a little bit of progress under Biden with some of the policies that he was putting forth. I saw the wealth gap. The wealth share was like less than 2%, and then it like increased to 3.4%. Oh my God! Don't do nothing like crazy now. And then when this dude gets into office, he's specifically signed out or did not fund any of the different policies that Biden put forth, whether if it was an executive order or whether if it was something that was written into law.
Yeah.
And these are the different things that like we're dealing with. I mean, and what does that all follow under? That follows under politics, like because like the only thing that's going to fix it is policy. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. You have to have everyone operating under the same rules to to make any real change to it, and you have to have the people. Unfortunately, many of the people at the top support those changes,
Right.
and that's it's again, and that goes back to a number of things you said, how capitalism works, and the the ways these things are systemically built in over all that time. It's just you need people to make real changes about it, and unfortunately, you know where there's never, of course, enough of that. Like we've learned so many lessons though that we ignore, and that's the
Yeah.
thing that frustrates the hell out of me with all of this, is that it's like we know that things like making sure that kids can eat at school and stuff, how the long game it looks like on that, like how much more successful we can all be by doing that,
Mhm.
and regardless of race. But because of those other things, we have these red line communities, and these schools that get left out because they're from poor black neighborhoods, and you see a lot of that. And there's just so many different places of where to start that you could make huge real change for people. And
Yeah.
um, unfortunately, you get people from both sides who like to hold up any kind of real change. Uh,
Yeah. Because either you got like some like, liberals or centrists or enlightened centrists who says you're moving too fast,
yeah,
right? And then you have like people on the right that says we don't want you to move at all.
yeah, yeah.
And I mean, like, my whole thing is, uh, I don't know what moving too fast is, but I know that the direction that we are moving in is not a good one,
Yeah,
because it's not just Black people suffering, right?
yeah,
Now, we there's always that very famous saying that when America catches a cold, Black America catches the flu. So, for one of the things that I like to talk about are things to prevent the cold, to keep Black people from catching the flu.
yeah.
So that means that I want to promote policies that would be for the better for all Americans, right? So
Right.
that means, like, universal health care. That would be good for everybody, right? We're the only country in the nation that does not have, I mean, the only country, only industrialized country in the world that does not have a universal health care program. Um, and it's insane that we don't. And the thing about it is that it would actually be cheaper to run Medicare for all, rather than doing like these subsidies to appease the medical companies, and also like healthcare institutions, health insurance institutions, right? And I mean, like, and if you and here's the thing, and because I've heard this before, especially working in that field for quite some time as a social worker, that, oh well, you'll bankrupt the health insurance agencies if you do Medicare for all. I said, no, you won't, because they
Involve them. Like,
the they I mean, you involve them, right? Because,
yeah,
like, here's the thing. I'm a ship counselor. That means that, like, I senior health improvement program, certified, trained. So I can help people sign up for Medicare Advantage programs.
yeah,
So what does that basically mean? If you are qualified for Medicare, then I can help you go through the benefits of different insurance companies that can help as far as like manage your healthcare through the government.
yeah,
So we already have those things in place. So why can't you do that for everybody? Because, like, you even think about like people who are working these dead end jobs, and the only reason why they're in their jobs is because they want to keep healthcare going. I think it's absolutely cruel for people to stay in jobs, especially that they have no chance of improving, that they are staying in it just so that they can see a doctor. Their kids can see a doctor. Their spouses can see a doctor. That's insane to me. So, like, if we actually had like a program where the federal government, which they have already done, negotiate, certain rates and things of that nature with health insurance companies, and to um, invite and assist with Medicare programs, then you already have the infrastructure in place. Same thing with Social Security. Social Security, for people who happen to be on it, pays for Medicare.
Yeah.
Social Security is basically UBI. You already have that program in place. And here's the thing: Social Security is not a drain on America's resources, it actually supports it. How many times have us who have paid into Social Security and the government itself have dipped into Social Security to pay for whatever type of pet program that they wanted to do?
Right. Yeah.
You know? So, like, when people like propose like things like universal income, basic income, that's Social Security, Medicare for all, we already have that into place.
Yeah.
Universal child care, that could be done and managed through through Medicaid, through the United States Education Department, because we have a lot of those things already in place at the state level. So the things that we need in order to actually increase a better society for everybody is already here. We just lack the commitment for lawmakers to make it available for everybody here.
Well, there's they're incentivized not to make it better for everyone,
That
but to make
part,
it better for the few.
that
Right.
part, that
Yeah.
part. hmm And
Yeah.
going back to capitalism.
I'm of course raised in the South, and being from Kentucky and stuff, I've seen how nasty a lot of these different things are. But
hmm
also, like, I'm from an incredibly poor area, so like, um, it's you kind of see like the blurring of some of those lines and stuff,
Yeah,
and wonder kind of what the because obviously it benefits someone, and how and why are they doing things that way, because it's counterproductive to what we would consider American values,
yeah,
or humanist values even.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but when you are completely sold out to capitalism, it goes completely against humanist values.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because like you're still committed to making sure that
The bottom
to
line.
create, that that the bottom stays at the bottom, right?
Yeah.
And see, that's what really even baffles me, but it doesn't completely, because because now that I know the history of, like, how we even got here in the first place, like, I get it, right? But at the same time, when we're even talking about, people who happen to be in rural areas like in the South, who are even white, and they're suffering too, but they're still okay with voting against themselves, right? And it's because they've been taught by the system to hate minorities. They've
Yeah.
been taught to accept, and it's not just white people, because I even talked to black
All
people
right.
who believe the same bullshit too. I got into an argument the other night. I won't say who because it doesn't matter, but with another black person who I used to work with, doing social economic justice movement work, um, concerning this whole thing about illegal immigrants, right? And I kept and I would bring up, like, some of the issues that we're dealing with right now, to why we're living under, fascism, under authoritarianism. And I'm like, why would any person who happens to have a semblance of a brain cell want to live that way, right? And I get, but the Latinos will have issues with black people, or these other immigrants that are coming in will work against black people, or some type of crazy shit, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just saying to myself, I'm like, you know that immigrants are not your problem. They're not. I mean, like, because, like, first off, when you even look at the data statistically of where, certain people are with working, that wasn't, where a lot of Black people work? They work for the government.
Yeah.
We are overrepresented. Well, we used to be until this motherfucker came along.
Yeah.
We are overrepresented when it comes to state and federal jobs. And a lot of that was because you had the introduction of affirmative action and DEI programs that actually helped Black people get these jobs in the first place, right? To the point where you were able to create some type of a semblance of middle class in Black America, right?
Yeah.
A lot of my girlfriends that I went to Catholic school with, their parents worked for the government. My mother, starting out, worked for the government. My father was a vet for the government, and got like, benefits through there eventually, you know what I'm saying? So, um, so like, so if you're thinking about that and you're saying like, oh, okay, well, yeah, so they're taking Black people's job, but not really, because like when you see like where these people are actually like, working, it's not in those areas. I mean, like even I think of myself, um, you know, especially when I got into social work, I was working for either I was working in an outfit where it was government related or government funded,
Yeah.
right? And so I'm not doing a job that like, a migrant farmer is doing. Even though like my grandfather, when he came to the United States back in the 1940s, he was a migrant farmer, but that didn't last long because he was like, yeah, I don't particularly like being called the N word. And he was working right in Mississippi on the sugarcane plantations. He was like, "Yeah, nah, I'm not." He was like, "I'm about to find another way out of here," and he ended up like selling his services up north in Chicago because he was a mechanic and worked for the railroad until he retired, and that's where he met my dad, who also worked for the railroad after he got out of the Navy. So which was also a government funded institution as well. So that's where a lot of us are.
Yeah.
So the thing is that you want to keep a if you want to keep a robust workforce, specifically for for people who happen to be here, and we still have issues concerning like a lot of discrimination, because of course that's a thing. You give them entrance in order for them to be able to be protected with government jobs. That's something that FDR came up with when you thought about the New Deal back in 1933, when he had the WPA. You know, so like guaranteed jobs for people who want jobs, and the government will pay you for that. And the government has been doing that for years.
Yeah.
So this whole thing about illegal immigrants are taking my jobs is absolutely a lie. That's
Oh,
not
right.
at all. But it goes back to what the Wizard of Oz says: create a good, give them a good enemy. People who you want to scapegoat to in order for you to keep your eye off of the real problem, right?
Yeah.
So this is what ends up happening, and then I'm getting to an argument with this person because they're telling me, oh, but the Latinos. I'm like, oh my God, would you please stop? Latinos are not your problem. Well,
Yeah.
I watched a video with one Latino person saying this particular thing about this particular child that happened on this particular day. I'm like, listen, hey, can we not do anecdotal evidence right now? I mean, like, and especially if you call yourself, I mean, like a lot of us are in this whole realm of not believing in a God because there is no empirical evidence to support the existence of a God. Why can't you use that same critical thinking and skepticism to put it into other areas?
Right. Yeah.
Makes sense.
The scapegoating thing is what I've pointed out a lot here with this recent administration. The scapegoating marginalized and minority people in order to create that fear because fear will drive change in people. And So I think that that's one of the many tools that they've used to perpetuate the status quo, but or to make it worse. In this case, the it's it's and yeah, you're right. Like one of the things I always say is if all that was true, like because you still have people, especially on the right, who will repeat these things still, and it's like, well, if all that's true, why, as they have deported all these people, is there not a boom in job growth? Like
Come on.
we're
Come
losing jobs,
on.
and
Joe, you are saying the quiet part out loud. You are talking too much like right. Hello. And I said the same thing to I said the same thing to this person that I was arguing with. I'm like, okay, grant you all that. I'm not going to, but even I mean, just for argument's sake, if the whole rationale was to spend, because I think that we're up to the hundreds of millions of dollars, this like in this whole campaign to get rid of illegal immigrants. Um, why isn't there a job boom? Why
yeah,
isn't there an income boom? Why isn't there, less of a, I mean, because like, yes, there is a chasm between black and white wealth, but there's a chasm between the have and have nots, period.
yeah,
It's not just black folk, right? So why haven't we not seen an upturn economically and socially for the people who are supposedly citizens of the United States? Because
yeah,
you got rid of illegal immigrants. And
right.
I tell you why, because they're not your problem.
Because they sold you a dream.
They did. They told you, right. They told you that, this shit is gold and it's not. It's still
Yeah,
shit.
yeah,
And they making you eat it in your face and you just like it's kind of like that. My son loves Winnie the Pooh. And there's this little song where he is just singing about honey. And and how like honey is the best thing in the world and I love honey and if you look at the visuals, like it's basically Pooh swimming in honey, jumping in honey, diving in honey. The honey is all over the place. But then when you get to the end of the cartoon, because he was so enamored with honey and he was told where he was with honey, then he realizes that what he was really swimming in was mud.
yeah, yeah,
And that's basically what has been sold to us as an electorate, that I want to give you all these great things, but these people are causing you the problem, so we're going to get rid of them. Oh, okay, cool. But again, like Pooh, you're selling us a dream that we're swimming in honey, but in actuality, we're swimming in mud because we're not getting anything that's going to help us as regular people get to where we need to get to, as an electorate. We're not getting the safety nets. We're not getting the the social contract that is supposed to be given to all of us in order for us to thrive in the United States. I mean, even if we're thinking about all the different things that created a middle class, it was through government programs, Joe. Government programs like the FHA, so that you can get low interest loans in order for you to purchase a home.
yeah,
The GI Bill for veterans who were coming home from World War II in order for them to purchase homes and also get into business and also go back to, to get a college education if they want it. Even can pass on some of those benefits to their kids. Creating, low, low interest loans, also being able to purchase and also investing into building, investing into a highway system, investing into education so that your kids can attend schools that will teach them, and also investing in different programs like STEM so that your kids can go to college and also be able to compete with the world. This
yeah,
is the type of stuff. This is the type of stuff that the government did in order for us to be able to compete to thrive and even actually create, a semblance of a meritocracy because we're now giving you the opportunity to do it. But when you take those things away, what do you expect?
Right, right. And these things are all tied together. When
Yeah,
you, as you change one, you change them all. And
right.
the with the education specifically, like it's take these things away while at the same time neglecting education, and in fact not even neglecting, but making an enemy of educated people, and the
Yes.
anti-intellectualism that takes place, um, makes it so much worse to where people then don't understand, so they buy into the to all the scapegoating and the
Yeah.
things that create more wealth inequality rather than less.
I
um,
I I never lived in a certain place where I saw so much fight against anti-intellectualism.
yeah, I
It's
know.
insane. It's like, you demonize people for going to college. You demonize, well, if you go to college, they're going to teach you how to be woke and they're going to teach you about that science stuff. And the next thing you know, you won't believe in God.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Then maybe I shouldn't have in the first place, like. Um,
It's like, I mean, like, I even think about, like, because, like, remember when I was mentioning that Black Nine Believers was attending the summit for the Second Coalition of America this past March. And we were specifically working with SCA to come against a voucher program for school vouchers specifically, so that you're not taking away money from public schools in order for you to fund private schools, which are predominantly Christian, right?
yeah,
And all sorts of bad reasons for it. But they were even wanting to extend that voucher program into homeschooling.
yeah,
Happy 420. Uh, and it's still 321 here and then, by the by, but not quite 420 yet. But yeah, so when you even look at the history of how we got to the point where there was like this push for homeschooling, even that had its like ties into racism. So you heard of Liberty University, right?
oh yeah,
Yeah. And you heard of Oral Roberts University, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So after you had Title 7 and Title 9, which was like the affirmative action portions of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 pass, Oral Roberts University and Liberty University, that was ran by Jerry Falwell at the time, were not admitting blacks into their schools. Now, why black people would want to go to Liberty University and Oral Roberts University, I don't know, but that's neither here nor there.
yeah,
So the Department of Justice under LBJ sued those universities and told them that, hey, you don't allow black folk in your school because this is an event. This is actually against the Civil Rights Acts. We're going to take away your tax exempt status. So they said, shit. So they had to bring them in, right? So what then happens in 1971? You get the passing of Roe v. Wade. Now, people who are able to become pregnant can make a decision of whether they want to keep the fetus alive or not,
yeah,
right? So, before that whole thing happened with Liberty University and also Oral Roberts University, evangelicals didn't have a mumbling word to say about abortion. But when they had like some right wing pundits who were in politics, who were saying, okay, now because of all these different policies that have passed at the top, we have to basically reinvent our racism. Decided that they were going to use abortion as a topic in order to get people on their side. And then that also meant to say, so we also have to create more religious education institutions that's going to teach things our way instead of you putting your kids into, like, the regular school programs. And now also too, since you had integration that was happening on the, from different state to state to state, then you have a rise in homeschooling.
Yeah.
And of course, like, if you all listen to Chad Harris, who was part of Shiny Happy People, who talked about how basically these people were not taught reading, writing, and arithmetic. They were basically re-pushed into indoctrination. So by the time that they graduated from their homeschools, they don't know shit. They can't go into college. They can't get a, like, like a job where they're making like real money for real, for real. And of course, like, a lot of these homeschooling programs are happening in the South with rural white people. And a lot of it is because they don't, okay, we can't send our kids to like public school because those blacks are there, and we can't have them around the blacks. And
Yeah.
and then so like we're gonna educate them ourselves, but we're not educating them at all. Like, so like it continues again, this perpetual cycle of poverty within these particular areas, all because they have bought into the systems that have been put into place to keep people apart and to keep people oppressed.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that there's noticeable moments in history where we've had these different ideals come out, whether it be the pro life movement or whatever it may be, but that again perpetuate this same thing over and over and over.
Yeah.
And one of the things like the homeschooling thing. So we you see that move into homeschooling, and specifically around race and religion,
Yeah.
and to this day, and then you have um, homeschooling's this like unregulated
Yes.
area has very little control and a whole lot of money in the form of lobbyists. Um,
Hmm.
one of the my big problems with the ARC encounter down here in Kentucky is AIG's move into homeschooling and what that looks like. The and it's just like with prosperity gospel and all that. It's made to target the vulnerable, the desperate, the weak, those that they can take from, and
Hmm.
so yeah, I follow you on all that. I agree on all that.
Joe,
Uh,
can you answer something for me? Because I think, because like, especially since you brought up the Ark encounter, wasn't like Ken Ham and his outfit getting like help from the state, like, some monies from the state for their museum or some shit like
okay,
that?
so
Yeah, yeah. Please
yeah,
enlighten me.
so that was the big that was kind of the rallying cry I went with for the thing was like there's this problem of separation of church and state here
Yeah.
because the state of Kentucky gave huge rebates in the form of tax rebates uh, uh, to AIG on a bunch of empty promises they made to bring the Ark Encounter in. The Creation Museum
Mm,
was already there and going, but it wasn't really doing a whole lot. I mean, that don't get me wrong, the Christian people were coming and seeing it and stuff, but they weren't really getting the numbers pushed through there that they were capable of. And so
mhm,
that's why if you look at like the Creation Museum and the Ark Encounter is just a bigger Creation Museum. It's almost the same exact thing, just huge. And
mhm,
so they not only gave tax rebates to AIG, but they sold them the land that all that's on for like $10.
what?
Yeah, and the state paid for all the changes to the interstates and the roads,
See.
and because to have a theme park, you have to have certain zoning things go on, and the state paid for all that,
Oh my
and
god.
Then on top of that, so it gets worse. They they so Ken Ham then goes and sells after the Ark Encounter is built. He sells it to his nonprofit
Mm.
organization for the $10, and the state of Kentucky takes him to court. Well, the state of Kentucky first says, "Well, okay, you want to sell it to your nonprofit? We're going to take these tax rebates back then because we can't
Right.
do that." Um,
Yeah.
Ken Ham, along with our Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, as one of the lawyers on the case,
Oh,
take the state of
that piece.
Kentucky to court,
Yeah.
and the state of Kentucky, the court ends up saying, "Well, you can't do that, first of all, but also we're not going to let them deny you these tax rebates because they should be available to everybody." And
Right.
which was not in error, even though it was, not great. But so now what happens is you have AIG, they're running it. 85% of all the taxes that move through their hands um, gets refunded back to them at the end of the year, and that includes schools and community projects, and of course fire departments and EMS and all that stuff.
Mhm.
The What they did though was they said, well, we want. They caught a lot of bad press over taking money from schools and the fire department. There was they needed to have new fire trucks to be able to cover some of these big hotels and stuff that were built
Mhm.
with multiple floors. They didn't have ladder trucks to reach those floors and stuff. So
Mhm.
by law, they had to replace these things.
Okay.
And so when AIG was pushed on it, they said, well, instead of us paying that money in taxes, what we'll do is we'll make contributions directly to these people. And which sounds okay on the surface, but what ended up happening is, like, whenever we got there this year, they had just had a um, Kentucky State Police and local police for the state of Kentucky did a big canine training program at the Ark Encounter, used their big
Mm.
auditorium and stuff, and so it's like, should you be doing that there? Like, it's maybe not. Maybe there's not a conflict there, but it doesn't look very good. Like, it looks really bad.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so yeah, there's a number of church and state issues that came up with AIG, and a lot of dirty litigation and things in the background.
Mm. Mhm.
But yeah, so at the end of it though, what they did is, first of all, they said, well, we'll move 2 million people through this place a year to uh, I forget the name of the town now. Grant County down there, though, and they said, "Well, we'll have 2 million visitors a year." Well, they never hit that number, but it's worse because even though they appeared to kind of get close to it and stuff, and they're making money. Don't get me wrong, but
Mhm.
they they invite schools to bring kids on field trips there by calling it a theme park rather than a religious organization. Even
Mhm.
though everybody that works there has to sign faith statements and all that. I mean, clearly a religious organization, but
Clearly.
so they actually pay schools or pay for schools to bring kids there and then count that. So there's no tax money coming from that. Then
Mhm.
85% of everything they're getting back.
Mhm.
So they're just getting rich at the expense of Kentucky taxpayers. And so
Mhm.
yeah, yeah, it's a whole dirty thing. But I missed it earlier. Jester, thank you for the $425 super chat,
Thank
and
you.
and then there's Cynthia with $1 gift to the super chat. Uh,
Cuz.
yeah, thank both of you. Uh, but yeah, yeah, that's why with the Ark Encounter. So there had been a group, Tri-State Freethinkers, who does a lot of great stuff, and a lot of great people work with them, and I can't say enough good things about Jim and Chrissy Helton and the people involved with that. But they, whenever the pandemic hit, they of course didn't do the art protest that year. And then after that, they were like, well, let's wait till the 10th anniversary before we bring this thing back. And, we've been doing it now for 7 of the last 8 years. Uh, I looked at that and was like, oh, no, no, no. We need to keep doing this. We need to keep having this thing, even if it's not going to be this big, huge turnout or whatever. We still need to continue to shine light on this. And so that's how I kind of got involved and ended up being behind it with some help from Jess and Robin and Will and a few other people. But that's how I kind of got involved there. And now next year will be the 10th anniversary, and they will be back doing that. And look forward to seeing some more people shit on Ken Ham, because fuck
Yes.
Ken Ham.
Yes, I agree. You know what? Shout out to Godless Granny for introducing me to Answers in Genesis, because she tapped my shoulder a few years back and to talk about this specific story that Answers in Genesis did about this black woman who wrote this poem that said, "God, dear God, help me to not hate white people."
Yeah,
And and she was a Christian, and she was coming from, and this is like, off of the heels of Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery and all these other, black folk that were getting killed at the hands of vigilantes and police and things of that nature, right? So Ken Ham decides to chime in for her poem that, was placed into this particular book. Um, and he decides to disingenuously bring up Dr. Martin Luther King, saying, "Well, I thought that King said that we're supposed to judge people not on the color of their skin, but the content of their character," right? And it was so disingenuous, because I find like a lot of people that's on the right, use those lines in order to weaponize their rhetoric concerning.
white people love saying that shit, Cynthia.
I I can't answer that question, Joe, but I'm so sick and tired of them doing it, because they're not doing it from an authentic place. They're doing it to, to basically say, you know how, like, some folk who happen to be racist say, "Well, I don't see color."
Yeah,
And a lot of that has to do with this. It's not that you don't see color. It's just that you choose to ignore the factors that brought us to this place. Why that there's such a divide because of color, right? Because of
right.
race. And it keeps you being able to stay in your bubble and create your own echo chambers for people who agree with you, and to the point where we're not really doing something on a holistic manner to do something against it. Because, like, here's the thing: I don't necessarily want to be the chick that talks about race all the time.
Yeah,
I really don't. I mean, like, listen, I love science fiction, play it with my son. I like to listen to music. And write different songs about, whatever.
yeah,
But unfortunately, race is still very much so part of the body politic, and it shows up so many times. Like, basically, racism and misogyny is like, in how it even intersects with religion, is kind of my shtick, right?
yeah,
Because, like, I'm a black person, I'm also a woman, and a lot of these different policies as of late has affected me adversely, and it affects people who I love and I care about adversely. And I hate that, I'm looking at stories where there are women that are dying in a parking lot because they can't get help when they happen to have ectopic pregnancies, and doctors refuse to actually intervene. I hate that, people are, losing their jobs just because Doge decided to go in and steal people's data and said that this particular agency is no longer, needed any longer.
Yeah.
And I mean, and like all these different things like affect all of us
Yeah.
horribly. And I mean, but we can't leave out that and I'm not saying that every church does this, and I'm not saying that every Christian does this, but we do have a significant factor of people who call themselves Christian who happen to be within this realm to prop up these really heinous, horrible, disgusting policies that happen to affect people here adversely. And
Yeah.
I mean, and it has to be incumbent on a critical mass of us, whether if you're a Christian or not, whether if you're atheist or not, whether if you're black, white, Chinese, whatever type of ethnicity or race that you happen to identify with,
Let
you have to, you know, you I mean, like, or you have to get to the point where it's like, listen, what is being proposed versus what works needs to be addressed.
right.
And we can't, like, live in a pluralistic society where you have people who with multiple backgrounds, where you have people who happen to be queer, where you have to have trans people, where you happen to have women, where you happen to have men, children, you dig all these different things, and not address the topics in order for them to be able to live in a society where we can get
Oh,
along
all
and we
right.
have the things that we need. Like that to me, that's the thing that's important. Like, like, I don't necessarily want to dive into these particular things, but I mean, shit, we can't necessarily help it because it's
Well,
not being addressed in a holistic manner.
I will. Let me hit these super chats, and I'll give you a something that works with that. That
Please.
yeah. So Maya Atkinson, $2 super chat. Sheba dog raises and lowers his index finger to get noticed. Hi Maya, thank you for coming. And yes, I do squander that dollar a month you give me on those memberships. If you want to be a membership or be a member with Maya and join those member streams, they start at 99 cents. Click the join button. And then Deviant Outcasts giving us all of her sex again. 100 sex. I hear the call. I answer. P's first time seeing Cynthia, and I got to say, I'm a legit fan. She's badass. Yeah, no, I've loved sitting here listening myself. I've had a great time with this. Let me show that one on screen there. I didn't pop it up there. The and I've seen somebody ask about my tooth. Yeah, it's still hurting, but it's not as bad as it was. Um, so thank you guys for the super chats, and thank you Maya for that dollar. I will buy something nice with it this month. The um, so that reminds me, what you were saying reminds me of um, Christopher Hitchens, religion poisons everything, and it's you see what would normally be decent, nice people who do care about others
Hmm.
do things they wouldn't otherwise do because of religion. And it doesn't have to be religion. There's other things that can influence that as well. But that was just, for Hitchens, that's what the book was about. But um, you have people who wouldn't otherwise act that way doing it because of some belief that's they think is bigger than them. Um,
Hmm.
when in fact all these things that you're talking about again are all when you address one of these you address multiple and
Yeah.
it is a fault in our society that we try to assign everyone to a box and
Yeah.
well you're Cynthia the atheist, or you're Cynthia from Black Non-Believers, or Cynthia the Black Woman, or
Hmm.
like we try so hard to fit people into these boxes nicely when that's just not the way people work, and
Right.
it's not the way anything works really. But um, unfortunately, you have things like religion and stuff that reinforce that. So it's just interesting you said that because it reminded me of Christopher Hitchens' quote on those things. But
Christopher Hitchens, I love that man. I'm so
yeah,
sad that he's not here.
yeah,
He said one of my favorite lines ever, and I'm going to say it, and I don't, and I should feel bad about saying it, but I don't. So when Jerry Falwell left the earth, Christopher Hitchens was invited to Fox News to talk about, Jerry Falwell passing.
yeah,
And as anybody knows, if they're familiar with his body of work, Christopher Hitchens had a lot to say about Jerry Falwell over the years,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
All great, by the by.
yeah.
And one of my favorite lines that he has ever said is that if you gave Jerry Falwell an enema, you can bury him in a matchbox. Bars!
Because he's full of shit.
Bars!
Yeah, the
So good.
yeah. Well,
So
that was
good.
the thing with Hitchens is his charisma to say things in a different way that just like, wait a minute, what did he say? Like, uh yeah, Hitchens had a way with words and a charisma within that space that just wasn't beatable. So many people go on about today, like and I get a lot into talking to apologists and stuff. And so many people will be like, well, Hitchens wasn't really that great. He wasn't that good on logic. His arguments, this and that. I say, you're missing the fucking point. Like, that's not what it was ever about. It was about showing the ridicule and things that these topics deserved. It was about treating this exactly the way it needed to be. We got Jester with another $5 super chat. I think of her as Cynthia, who should rant, give speeches more. Go off, Queen. Yeah, for sure.
Thank you, Ninja Gesture.
Uh, no, I mean, I've loved this conversation. I think we've had a great talk, and I knew that we would. Just whenever, whenever I have people on, I kind of go back over a little bit of whatever your most recent thing is, whatever your most popular thing is, just to kind of, look at it. And I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, I said those same things. So I knew that. I knew that we would have a great conversation about all that,
Yeah.
um, and like I said earlier, I do the political show. Now we usually do that on Thursdays at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, which I know is kind of middle of the week, middle of the day, not great for everybody. But if you're ever around for those, you're welcome to join us and talk politics with Robin and I. We have some great conversations on there. This last week was a really good one. But
Yeah, I tuned in for that one. I love you, Robin, so, 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 so
yeah,
much. I
yeah,
really do. I was so happy to meet her in Tennessee too. I was like, oh my God, it's you. It's so you. So yeah. Oh, and I see Crystal in
yeah,
chat too. Hey girl, how you doing? So yeah. But yeah, I'm glad that, like I said, that's what I was saying. Like I'm just like, I was just so like happy that you said, yeah, you can come on. I was like, yay. Because no,
yeah.
I dig you guys' channel a lot. I really do.
And anytime you are here, that thing that I keep putting in chat that's like has the exclamation point in your name, if you ever need to drop a link, that'll always be active. So everybody who comes on, I just kind of leave those things there so you can tell people where to find that kind of stuff at. Because while I do talk a lot of community and a lot of feelings, this and that and stuff, I don't claim to be like an expert in any field or anything like that. And obviously, a lot of topics that I'm, out of my depth in at times. So I keep all that stuff active so I can say, oh, but you know who does? Let me just type this name in here and send you that way. Which is circles back around to what you were saying is rather than, I talked about earlier, I said that it was our ability to overcome these things in our past, at least to the extent that we have so far. That strengthens us and makes patriotism in America a thing. The It's the same thing on a smaller scale, though. Like, multiple people from multiple backgrounds with strengths in multiple different disciplines is what makes us strong as a community. To, like, I don't have to have all the answers for you, but I know somebody who has that answer or that other answer, or who can talk about it better than I can.
Yeah,
And all of those perspectives working together, regardless of you know, wealth inequality and race and all the things that do hold us back, um, we can use those tools to keep on moving forward.
I
And
agree. Yeah, I agree.
that,
I think that all to be all said and done, and I know that we're going to be wrapping up pretty soon, but I think that like we're better together, you know, and I know that like it was artificial things that created divides between us, but it can be us who are humans who want better to come together so that we can make it right.
yeah,
And a lot of that is just to recognize that if we really want to be like, even though I'm not a huge fan of Sam Harris, I will agree that the thing that really drives humanity to be a survival species is all of us who happen to garner to well-being. And if we can, come to the point where we can all agree that well-being is better for all of us who happen to be humans and other species who happen to live on this planet, because we only have one planet to live on. Last time I checked, even though I've seen it plenty of times in science fiction, we have not created a colony on Mars. So with that being said,
yeah,
we should yet yet or on the moon, okay, yet. I listen, I'm a Star Trek fan, so yeah, live long and prosper. So, I believe these things can be a thing. However, until they are, I think that it's important for us to really just think about protecting our world, protecting our homes, protecting each other, and creating a society where all of us can actually move forward instead of like actually creating and putting artificial barriers to keep people from doing that. And that's the only thing that I'm hoping that the work that between Black non-believers, between you, between all of us who happen to do activism work, especially in the secular community, can do.
right. And you know, much more well said than I was doing. uh, I but I think that's a great place that we should wrap it up. Actually, the I've got Black Non-Believers you just mentioned, and your channel, a couple messages above it rolling through chat there. Go
Mhm.
and subscribe to these people. Go and listen to what other people in this community have to say, because you don't always know what thing it is that's going to hit you that makes you realize something new or learn something new, which I know for a lot of us in this community is really important to not only be trying to make the world a better place in whatever little small way at a time, but to learn something along the way, even if it's to selfishly benefit yourself in some way. But it's those two things though have to grow at the same time. There's not a way to like separate them. So, um, whatever your excuse for it is, do it. And you know, obviously, I've worked with Mandisa and Black Non-Believers, and Kelly's a good friend of the channel, and you and I will be talking more in the near future. And
Yes, because now that I've been here, Joe has to come on my channel because I said
mm,
thanks.
yeah, no, I love doing that. I love doing that. And I love, like, you have been around even this part of this community longer than I have. But your channel is something that you're growing and working on, and all that. And I love to see that, and I love to be able to send people to those places to get those extra perspectives that we're talking about, instead of you know I, I bitch a lot about things like the line and stuff, where you have like just people yelling at Christians and whatever, and like there's benefit in that depending on who you are, but there's I think that um, any any person in this chat probably right now can tell you that it's this diversifying among um, female creators, black creators, people from the South, people from other countries, and their perspectives on all these topics that really helps us to better understand them, and to make more informed decisions, and to help each other grow. So
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
because I think that debates are good. I don't necessarily have issues with debates, and I will, and I've done them, right?
yeah,
But at the same time, I also understand that it's really important for us to be able to expand our conversations, because there's so many different things that happen to contribute to how we live as human beings, and we've been debating on the existence of God for like thousands of years. We've been debating on hermeneutics and apologetics. I'm sorry, yeah, that's, apologetics is not a word. Apologetics for a very, very long time. I kind of like even devolve myself. I will say devolve myself because this is the conclusion that I came up with when it comes to apologetics and hermeneutics, and this is something that I often tell like Christians, like when I engage them in these particular conversations about the existence of God, whether if you're a mythicist or not, or anything of that nature. And especially like if you're talking about a God that's all powerful, all knowing, all loving, yada yada yada, all the omnis, right? That God is supposedly to possess. You know, I think of myself like as, why would an all powerful God need hermeneutics in order for you to understand what that God is saying?
yeah. I say that all the time.
Yeah, and why would an all powerful God need you to be an apologist to defend their existence?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Why does God need apologists? And I've seen this post on Facebook just yesterday, I think, where
Hmm.
someone had said atheists don't understand the Bible, and I was like, I disagree, but okay. Like, so you're telling me that the Bible was written in a way that this huge swath of people can never understand it, and can never know your God? Is that what you're saying? Have you made it such an exclusive thing that
Hmm.
it's only available to you?
Yeah,
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 and it's silly stuff like that. And
yeah.
I think with apologetics and the debate thing, like I've flip flopped on this a number of times. I openly admit it. Like, but
Mm,
I think that there are people who have nefarious goals
yeah,
in their apologetics
I do too.
ministry. Um, and then there's like fun talking about science and stuff like that, and from both perspectives. Like, I've talked to apologists who enjoy the interaction just as much as I do, and to sit and talk about science. I had a 2-hour conversation about cosmology last night. Like,
Mm,
it's you know but I'm also not like deluded about why I'm doing that either. Like,
yeah,
I'm not going there and changing somebody's mind, or going to argue them into submission, or
yeah,
anything like that. Like, it's just, it's a topic I like, and it's a way we discuss it. And at the same time, there's harmful implications that we can shed some light on, which is always good.
yeah,
So I don't. I'm not real critical about any of that. There's and to each person their own, though. Like if you want to get upset about who somebody has on, or who they talk to, or what they like, if that's what you want to focus your time on, go for it. Like, but like I'm just not going to watch it. Like, which, which is, I think,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, I think that when I was first coming out as an atheist, I think I came out as an atheist in 2018, and I did like absorb a lot of that type of content, right? The
yeah,
debates between theists and atheists, especially like I watched a lot of Hitchens, I watched a lot of Dawkins. I remember watching Lawrence Krauss with something from nothing, and also like reading part of his book that was talking about that as well, that like there's never nothing per se. And even like watching like the debates where William Lane Craig continuously peddling the the Kalam cosmological argument, which is
yeah,
shit, and I
yeah,
need you to stop.
yeah,
Even because even he will admit that he cherry picks when it comes to the Bible, and that like some of the things, like especially when it comes to the creation stories, he doesn't really believe that that's true. So I'm like, so why are you doing this? So anyway, so like I look at these particular things, and sometimes I find that some of the arguments that are coming from these sides, especially like listening to a lot of this information, is quite vapid. And I mean, I think that they have some value, but I don't think that that's the value that we should be putting everything in, even if
right,
we're calling ourselves secular, because there's so many different things that are really pushing the buttons of how we are living our lives right now. And it's not hermeneutics, it's not apologetics. If anything, I would definitely say that we have a nefarious wing of Christianity called Christofascism or Christian nationalism that has intersected, I mean, that has injected, rather, not intersected, but injected themselves in the body politic to really push policies that are really horrible. You know, I mean,
yeah,
I remember same person that I was saying that I was having this argument with about, Latinos are not your problem. I told them, and this is during the presidential campaign, about Project 2025. And I said to them, I was like, listen, this is the stuff that was written by the Heritage Foundation, and there were people who were working in the first Trump administration who were part of the authors and the framers of this particular body of work, almost 1,000 pages, who want to implement these particular strategies in as soon as he goes back into office. I hear from this person, oh, that stuff is unconstitutional. Oh, that stuff cannot happen. Yada, yada, yada. Trump said he never heard about this before in his life. And I was like,
yeah.
really? The person who lied almost 35,000 times during his first administration, that's what you're going to really believe? I
So,
mean, well documented. I mean, like, he was at the Heritage Administration, at a Heritage Foundation dinner, addressed the people back in 2017 who actually admitted and said that they are working on a project right now to
mhm,
dictate how they want an administration on the executive level to go.
right.
So, and I mean, like, dude, listen, pay
Well,
attention.
that,
And
this is a, and so much for wrapping it up. But
yeah, I
and
know, I
I
know.
don't
I'm
care. I don't.
sorry.
No, no, no,
Listen,
no,
let
no.
me tell
I
you
don't have
something.
anywhere to be, so I want to.
Pri-
I do want to say something about this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
So, so
I was just about to say this real quick, that like, listen, half my family is like from the Baptist tradition, so they close about 5 times. But continue.
right, yeah, yeah. So, Maya Atkins and I were on a panel talking with two very intelligent, well-spoken people. I'm not going to call them out by name. Actually, three well-spoken people, two of which are very well known in these circles in this community and stuff. And they were like, "Oh, he's not going to do that, and he's not going to do this thing," and it's like, are we going to keep falling for, me and Maya both were just like frustrated. We were like, are we going to keep falling for this? Like, are we going to keep saying, oh, he's not going to do that, and then he does the thing? And like, when are you going to start listening and paying attention and quit like making excuses of why you don't have to say anything about it now,
Right.
um
Yeah.
and yeah, that's one of the most frustrating things for me is it's like they've told you the plan. Like,
Yeah.
what I say a lot that it's only their incompetence that outdoes their will to do evil. And
Mm.
the
That's bars, Joe. Right, that's bars right there. Yeah,
and,
totally.
and the fact is that they, just like any supervillain in any movie, they're sitting here with this big long exposition of what the plan is, and you're gonna, nah, they can't pull that off. Like,
Mm.
and here we go. We're like 3/4 of the way through Project 2025 now. um,
Hello, hello. Well, shout out to Maya, girl. She was in chat. How you doing, girl? I love you very much.
Robin and I talk about, we have so much of a better prophecy record than the Bible.
Hello, you do. You totally do. I'm like, yeah, most of us that's in these internet streets got a better prophecy record of the damn Bible. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's just crazy. Like, I think about like all the times like Pat Robinson, like, came to predict shit that never came true, and people are like, oh, he's a prophet. I was like, yeah, he also did. But regardless of that, a lot of us who have been screaming it, and I believe that, Robin said it in the chat as well. We said, listen, this is their plan. This is what they want to do. This is the stuff that they, want to push. It's quite apparent. I mean, like, y'all listen to the rhetoric, but you're not listening to the truth. And
yeah,
that's my problem with a lot of these people who want to ignore like a lot of these particular things, because some of the other rhetoric actually sits well with their personas and all the things that they really want to happen. And yes, I agree, Robin, that is gaslighting. So yeah, I mean, like, listen. So now that we're here, and especially like, I I drink MAGA tears for tea in the morning, because a lot of them are FA and FAFO'd right now. Oh, I did not vote for this. I was like, the fuck you didn't. Yes,
yeah,
you did. You totally did. Because it wasn't like they were keeping this stuff a secret. I know that all they did was just like say the quiet part out loud and then say, but oh no, but that's not 2025, because I don't know anything about that.
I said before the election even occurred,
Hmm.
and especially once it did, and Robin too was like, now look, accountability is coming for you folks. Like
Yep.
there's going to come a time when this isn't. You're going to find out that this is completely destructive and bad, and all these things that you're lying about
Hmm.
are gonna come for you. And
Yeah.
and whenever we come and say like you knew this was what was going to happen, you voted for these things to happen, I don't want to hear the
Right.
shit about like oh, that's not what I voted for. And
Hmm.
it's that same thing you see within like the, well, I don't know any Christians who do that awful thing, and I don't know any people of this group that do that thing. It was the point the whole time, like, and you supported it and helped it and was another log on the fire, if nothing else, um,
Right.
and accountability. I'm going to later hold you accountable for those things and say, remember when I told you this thing
Yeah.
that you were full of shit about, and
Yeah.
now here we are.
And here we are. Listen,
Yeah,
I just saw like Maya put it in chat, like, I didn't vote for this equals I didn't think the leopards would eat my face. I have to say that. I didn't know the leopard would eat my face. Oh, I didn't know the leopards would eat my face. I thought that I had grace and I thought that I was safe. But I didn't know the leopards would eat my face. And now you see it happening.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
And now you see it happening. And on that note, I will shut up.
All right.
But no, I'm not going to shut up.
Me
Please,
too.
yeah, please subscribe to my channel, The Roots Matter. I have an interview with the Afro atheist Esther, who lives in the UK, originally from so please, I'm going to be editing that video after I get off the horn with you, Joe. So check that out. I also have an interview coming up. I know that you're going to say, so what are you going to have coming up now? I'm just beating you to it. I'm also doing an interview next Sunday on December the 7th with Julius Calvert, who is the Zora Neale Hurston scholarship winner, that is put on by the Secular Student Alliance and also Black Brown Believers. Recipient in 2023. He's going to be talking about a research project concerning racism, but looking at the science behind it, specifically what happens in your brain when it comes to biases and how that even looks into like creating institutions. So that's going to be a really great conversation. I got other stuff that's like on the channel itself, so please check all that other stuff out, and we also have like Alice Gospel is going back into research, into rehearsals. So, we're going to be announcing when we're going to be doing some performances like coming next year. And also, I'm going to be doing like some, solo projects on my own as well. So please, if you tune into the Roots Matter and follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and all those other different places, then I'll keep you guys abreast about all the different things that are happening. Yeah.
All right. Well, that answers that question. All right. So thank you so much for your time, and to the viewers, the audience there, whether you're watching this now or later, thank you for taking the time to listen to what we have to say. I appreciate everybody who watches the channel. If you enjoyed this, you want to see more, like and subscribe. That's the buttons are down there. They're there for a reason. My channel members, thank you. My subscribers, thank you. And get on over to the Roots Matter and subscribe to Cynthia's channel. And
Do it.
I'll be over there at some point. We'll get it figured out here soon. And again, coming up this week, we've got Robin and I on Thursday at 1 p.m. Politicality, where we're going to talk about some stuff that's been going on in the political arena in the last week. And then I hate to say it because I'm not sure who I have on next weekend. I've scheduled several people. I've got a couple mythicist authors coming up, and we're going to give away some books. So all that's coming up too. But yeah, thanks for coming. Have a great one. Go subscribe to Cynthia's channel. It's there in the chat. Bye.